Hi everyone, my name is Hannah and I'm an author from the south of England. I hope you're all doing really well. Today's video is a little bit different for me. This is a flash fiction piece as part of All Our Hearts Authortube Audiobook Anthology Volume 2. I will link the playlist in my description below. Please go and check out the other stories. They're all going to be awesome, and the theme is unnatural. April showers. Mum! The shout filled the room, the voice huge despite the size of its owner. Mum! It came again, tiny hands pressing on the window pane, breath hot and heavy, a billowing cloud of condensation fogging and spreading like a mask. The glass was cold to the touch. The chilled dampness prickled under warm palms, blanketed by even warmer breath as it cascaded from the inside of the boy as he stared. He pulled away, dragging a tattered sleeve over his hand and wiping the condensation away. It cleared, leaving smears of dampness behind. His sleeve was wet and cold, the chilliness permeating his clothes and skin and bones and heart. She still didn't hear. Mum! He cried again, slamming his body into the window pane. She turned at that, at the thud that clattered behind her. A grin came to pass on her face as she made her way back to the window that belonged to the house that she lived in. Long strands of saturated hair hung over her gaunt face, soaked ropes falling limply around her shoulders like Medusa snakes, the ends dripping in water onto her body, pooling on the ground around her. "What is it?" she mouthed to the boy as she knelt by the window, separated by an inch or two of glass, nothing more. The young boy jabbed a finger into the sky behind her, pointing at a clearing in the clouds. His eyes brimmed with worry and tears. He chewed hard on his lower lip. His mother's gaze followed the tip of his finger until she spotted a break in the clouds. The bright blue of the sky peering beneath the rumble of rain in the grey of the storm. She placed a hand on the glass, waiting for him to place his own on the other side. "It's okay," she mouthed. "The clouds are thick. The rain is still coming. I've got time." She traced a heart in the condensation and pointed at her boy, her smile full of the most genuine warmth, overflowing with love. He smiled back, but the gesture didn't reach his eyes. The blue of the sky terrified him. He wanted her back inside, with him, cradling him. Safe. "I'll be 5 more minutes, okay?" The boy nodded and watched as his mother turned away from him, back to her position by the wall, collecting water, pulling up vegetables, and spreading seeds across the patch of sodden earth that was theirs. She didn't have many opportunities to do this, to feed them, to give them what they needed to stay alive. Only when it rained. He craned his neck back up to the sky, his eyes on stalks, stretching to see the widening expanse of blue tearing through the clouds. His mum was still working. She wasn't paying attention to the sky, but the raindrops were still coming. She'd be fine. There were a few others out in the rain doing the same thing, but they were turning back now. The boy watched as the faces of his neighbours turned away, waving to his mum and retreating to the safety of their own 4 walls. Why did his mum still have to work? The rain was getting lighter, the droplets decreasing to gentle spatters that hit the ground with a softness that set his teeth on edge. It was getting slower, gentler. The clouds were closing up and holding onto the moisture that remained amongst their contours. Why wasn't his mum coming in now? "Mum!" he yelled again, panic setting in. "Mum!" he screamed, not giving her a chance to answer. She turned around, a handful of muddy potatoes clasped between her fingers. "It's okay," she repeated, her lips forming the shapes of the words. But it wasn't okay. He watched the clouds, watched as they began to part and more blue peered through the grey. She held up a finger, just 1 more minute. She bent down to retrieve her bucket and bottle, now filled with precious rainwater. And then it stopped. The rain ceased to fall from the sky. Rays from the sun pierced through and streaked the soaked ground. Now he should scream. Now he should cry out for his mother. But instead the boy stared, his eyes wide and spilling tears onto his grubby t-shirt, just as the clouds had dropped their raindrops moments ago. "Mum?" he questioned, his voice too quiet for even him to hear. His stomach churned and coiled. His mum strained her neck up from her crouching position, her head inching closer, 1 vertebrae at a time. Her hair, still holding onto the rainwater that fell just seconds earlier, parted like 2 damp rags, revealing her face underneath. The face that should have been his mum, that should have held her warm brown eyes and freckled cheeks and lips that loved to smother him with kisses and tell him just how much he meant to her. But that's not what he saw. Her eyes flooded with red, the irises bleeding a maroon so dark it was almost black. Her skin peeled back off the curves of her cheekbones, pulling tight and transparent over her skull until it began to tear at the seams. Her warm features and loving smile was replaced by a vision so unnatural that he couldn't tear his eyes away from it. "Mum," he mouthed again. She cocked her head to the side. Could she have heard that from all the way out there, from behind the closed window? She'd never left it this late, never risked staying out there past the rainfall. Why had she done so today? He cursed and cried, and kept his eyes on her as she changed into something unrecognisable. Her hair slid from her head, gathering in tendrils on the floor. She curled her body until she was on all fours, her shoulder blades arched and threatening to pierce through the thin skin on her back. He shifted away from the window, his eyes still locked onto hers. She sprang, propelling her body from her hind legs and reaching out her clawed hands, her body shooting like a missile through the air. He scampered further from the window and turned to run as her body shattered the thin window panes, and she was on him, her lips pulled back, gums bloody. She showered him with anything but kisses.